Nifty Sensex erased gains in last hour of trade to close near day's lows. Most sectoral indices end higher, with Realty leading the rally. Hyundai India is set to bring in one of India's biggest IPOs to the market. It is a 27,870 crore rupee IPO with a price band of 1,865 to 1,960 rupees per share. RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das raises concerns about certain NBFCs pursuing aggressive growth strategies, especially without proper risk management frameworks. RBI bars lenders from imposing foreclosure penalty on prepayment of loans by MSMEs, move aimed at benefiting customers and tightening regulation. Market share cap on UPI platforms like PhonePe and Google Pay is likely to be implemented by the 31st of December. The NPCI draws up a 30% market share cap on UPI transactions by volume. 250 protesting Samsung workers are arrested by the Tamil Nadu police as the standoff continues. State's finance minister appeals to the CITU to withdraw the strike. Hezbollah launches barrage of rockets into northern Israel, hitting city suburbs of Beirut. Israel claims its aerial strike has killed a Hezbollah commander. NDTV Prophet brings you a ground report. Well, good evening and welcome. You are watching NDTV Profit. This is Profit 360 and I'm Nupur Talwar Suri. Well, we begin with a look at what happened on the markets today, and the Nifty and the Sensex erased gains in the last hour of trade to close nearly at the day's low. Now, most sectoral indices ended higher. The FMCG emerged as the top sectoral loser, while Realty led the rally. And Neeraj is bringing you a wrap of all the action that took place.
It was choppy and volatile day of trade. Maybe not as volatile, but definitely the end was far different from what the scene was looking like when the markets were behaving just immediately post the RBI policy. Banks and financials took the markets higher, but in the end, the bank Nifty came off and ended absolutely flat. Just shows how choppy the day was. IT held out in trade today. Still, it came off because at a point of time it was about 0.8% higher, ended about 0.5% higher. But the mid caps and small caps did well. I think most portfolios would have done well today, because if you just look at the mid caps and small caps and what they have done, and then you look at the Nifty 50 movers, you will see that except for FMCG, which not too many people have in the portfolios nowadays, or Reliance and HDFC Bank and a couple of others, a lot of other stocks actually did well. So this was the bucket which didn't do well. FMCG, Reliance Industries, HDFC Bank, somewhere in the top 10 or 12 right here. But look at the set of stocks which did very well for themselves. So pharmaceuticals had a good day. Cipla was up in the green. There was Divi's Lab, which was up about 8%. Trent did very well. Tata Motors, SBI, Tech Mahindra. So a clutch of those names had a very, very good move in the session today. The broader end of the spectrum as well, by the way. On the BSE fund, if you look at the winners and losers, you will see a pattern of sorts. So pharmaceuticals and chemicals had a good name. So the likes of Divi's Lab had a good outing. Gujarat Fluorochem had a good outing. There was strength in rights with a particular order win. AkzoNobel, maybe a crude beneficiary otherwise, but doing well for itself. On the flip side, some financial names did come off as well. Maybe not quite here on the list, but the likes of AU Small Finance, etc., had a slightly weak outing. Tata Communication, Vodafone, so telecom took a bit of a backseat as well, and FMCG stayed at top of the pile. Just a couple of mentions on yesterday's key movers. So we should bring up Paytm, had a 15% up move yesterday. Strong day of bounce, very strong volumes. In today's session was rather quiet for itself. Ola Electric had a big move in trade yesterday, big day of recovery for itself in trade yesterday. Today's trade quiet. But there were individual pockets. Exide, for example, had a big blockbuster day yesterday and continued the momentum today, doing very well for itself, up 5%. Transformers and rectifiers, a management that you will hear on NDTV Profit tomorrow or TRIL, was up 5% after its earnings yesterday, up 5% today as well, and the stock trading at 707. So a clutch of names had some fairly strong moves. But all in all, a quiet day at the index level, except for the fact that portfolios might have done well because the broader markets had momentum today.
All right, Neeraj, thank you very much for that. Now, on to the other big story today. The RBI's Monetary Policy Committee has kept interest rates unchanged, but changed the stance to neutral, indicating rate cuts are going to be there in the future. Now, further, a word of caution from Shaktikanta Das to NBFCs regarding imprudent growth practices and the necessity of maintaining a strong compliance culture. Here's what the governor had said today.
It's not a shift. The reason for earlier I used elephant, this time I'm using horse. The reason is that it's a war against inflation. And in a war, elephants and horses are used historically. Arjuna will come when there is a requirement. Arjuna, with his Brahmastra or with Narayanastra or the various astras that Arjuna has, will come back if and when necessary.
It's with a lot of effort that the inflation horse has been brought to the stable. That is closer to the target within the tolerance band compared to its highest or heightened levels 2 years ago. We have to be very careful about opening the gate, as the horse may simply bolt again. We must keep the horse in tight leash so that we do not lose control. Going forward, we need to closely monitor the evolving conditions for further confirmation of the disinflationary impulses.
While several central banks have mirrored the US Fed by cutting interest rates, the RBI has opted to maintain the repo rate. Earlier in the day, we spoke to Katrina L. from Moody's Analytics, Jaideep Iyer as well from RBL Bank, and Jayesh Mehta from DSP Finance, who weighed in on the impact of this policy.
What we saw from the RBI today was really broadly as expected. I think it was a really good move in the extremely volatile geopolitical backdrop that we've got at the moment to provide as much forward guidance as they possibly can, right? And so the fact that they shifted to neutral, as they were widely expected to do, really does then set up expectations appropriately for a cut to come most likely in December.
I think as a banker, first of all, I'm actually quite happy that we saw a change in stance prior to the actual rate cuts, because, this is, by the way, the first let's say, change in rate cycle that is expected when the banking sector has a significant amount of loans which are linked to external benchmarks and mostly repo. So from a purely banking standpoint, we would prefer liquidity to be easy for a while, where bulk rates come down, retail deposit rates start inching down before we have a rate cut cycle. So to that extent, I think it is good. I think the answer to your question on why rates...
they have already started infusing liquidity, and with the surplus liquidity, they had to change the stance. In terms of rate cut, they would like to see the actual figures. So that's where, right now, because of the base effect, the projection of inflation has not been changed at all. Even the GDP growth projection has not been changed at all. So by December, I think both of that could be lower, and that's where we have the scope for change in rate. Because as of right now, though inflation is under control and real rates are higher, but GDP is not the GDP is not suffering, the growth is not suffering, and that's why you could keep higher real rates of 2%, but that has to change, and maybe hopefully they will do that in December.
In fact, the Governor Shaktikanta Das at the policy announcement raised concerns about certain NBFCs pursuing aggressive growth strategies without a proper risk management framework.
It is observed that some NBFCs are aggressively pursuing growth without building up sustainable business practices and risk management frameworks, which should be commensurate with the scale and complexity of their portfolio. An imprudent growth at any cost approach would be counterproductive for their own health. Second, driven by significant accretion to their capital from both domestic and overseas sources, and sometimes under pressure from their investors, some NBFCs, including microfinance institutions and housing finance companies, are chasing excessive returns on their equity. While such pursuits are in the domain of the boards and managements of NBFCs, concerns arise when interest rates charged by them become usurious and get combined with unreasonably high processing fees and frivolous penalties.
And NDTV Profit's Pallavi Nahata is joining in with a comprehensive explanation of what this means for NBFCs. Hi Pallavi, tell us more please.
Apart from maintaining a status quo on the benchmark lending rate at 6.5% and the change in stance to neutral, one of the takeaways from today's policy was RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das's comments on the NBFC sector, while he maintained that the health of the NBFCs continues to remain strong. He noted that there has been some recent commentary on the likelihood of stress building up in segments like loans for consumption purposes, in microfinance loans, credit cards outstanding. So while the RBI is closely monitoring these segments, banks and NBFCs also need to carefully assess their individual exposures on these specific segments. More specifically on NBFCs, the RBI governor also said that while the overall health of the sector is strong and healthy, some NBFCs appear to be pursuing growth aggressively and almost at the cost of prudent practices. So what he said was that NBFCs are aggressively pursuing growth without building sustainable business practices and risk management frameworks, and an imprudent growth at any cost approach would be counterproductive for their own health. He did affirm that the commentary was not so much for the sector at large, but a few players possibly. Some of the factors that he also spoke about was the fact that some NBFCs appear to be chasing excessive returns on their equity and charging high interest rates. He also said that NBFCs need to review some of their prevailing compensation practices, variable pay, and incentive structures, which appear to be purely target driven in certain NBFCs, and this could also result in an adverse work culture and poor customer service. Self-correction by the NBFCs would be the desired option, and the RBI too would continue to closely monitor the space. So that's what the commentary coming in from the RBI was.
All right. So Pallavi joining in on that. Thank you very much. With UPI, in fact, gaining wider prominence, the RBI today has decided to enhance certain limits of UPI products. Now, these changes are expected to encourage further adoption of UPI. And Subhana Sheikh joins in with the reasons behind RBI's move.
Yes, so the RBI has increased the limits for two UPI products. First, it has increased the limits for UPI 123 Pay. It has enhanced a per transaction limit to 10,000 rupees from 5,000 rupees earlier. Now, UPI 123 Pay was launched in March 2022, and it actually enables users with feature phones to make transactions through simple methods like probably a missed call. Now, further instructions will be issued on the NPCI website shortly, and the other product that they have increased the limits is UPI Lite. RBI has actually decided to increase the wallet limit to 5,000 rupees from 2,000 rupees earlier, and it has also increased the per transaction limit of UPI Lite to 1,000 rupees from 500 rupees earlier. So these moves by the Reserve Bank of India has actually designed to improve the accessibility and efficiency of digital payments across the country, and particularly for those without smartphones or access to actually high speed internet. So yes, that's on the UPI.
All right. Now, Subhana, the other part of what we've heard from the RBI today is that MSMEs will now be able to prepay loans without paying a foreclosure penalty. So that's something that would work out well for them. And obviously, the RBI has kept consumer interest at the center.
Yes, you've said it correctly. So banks and NBFCs were actually not allowed to levy foreclosure charges or prepayment penalties on any floating rate term loan given to individual borrowers for non-business purposes. But now the RBI is actually proposing to broaden this scope of guidelines, which would actually include loans given to MSMEs in this, so that MSMEs will be actually able to prepay loans, without paying the foreclosure charges. Now, few banks, while some banks don't actually impose these kind of foreclosure charges, but few banks continue to do so. So, and these foreclosure charges are largely between 2 to 5% of prepayment amount, excluding taxes. So, the governor actually also said that this move is actually largely to safeguard customers' interest, through better transparency and customer centricity by lenders.
Subhana, thank you very much for joining us and breaking those two big points from the RBI governor's speech today. Moving on, Hyundai Motor India has priced its initial public offering, which is set to be India's largest IPO in history, when it opens next week. Now, the subscription of the IPO will open from the 15th of October on to the 17th of October. The South Korean parent company will sell 14.2 crore rupees worth shares, while the shares will be priced between 1,865 and 1,960 rupees per piece, aiming to raise up to about 27,870 crore rupees. Now, this listing of Hyundai Motor India IPO is set to break the record that was set by LIC of India, which raised $2.7 billion in 2022. Now, this will also be one of Asia's biggest IPOs in recent years. In fact, NDTV Profit caught up with the managing director as well as the CEO of Hyundai to know more about the future outlook.
In the SUV segment, we offer the customers petrol and diesel. In the Verna segment, we offer the customers petrol and turbo. And of course, we have an Ioniq 5 as an EV. So I think this kind of different kind of powertrains to different kind of geographies, because Indian geographies also behave very differently. Like somewhere in UP, CNG is very, very popular. Whereas in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh and Punjab, diesel is very popular. In Delhi, petrol is very popular. So different powertrains, different segments help us to really, really grow. SUV segment, I think, like I said, we have always been very, very bullish on the SUV segment, and going forward also we'll see what kind of opportunities exist. Of course, competition is always there, Indian markets has always had competition, but we believe as long as we are able to identify trends, as long as we are able to give new features, new technology, I think we can always get the love and affection of the customer.
Currently, we are 20% for export, 80% for domestic, but it depends on some our overseas countries' economic situation. But we are maintaining and improving. We are increasing both domestic and export volumes.
Well, Tata Technologies and BMW have teamed up to launch BMW Team TechWorks India, a collaborative initiative aimed at advancing automotive technology. Now, NDTV Profit's Tushar Deep Singh exclusively caught up with Tata Tech CEO Warren Harris to explore the potential impact of this joint venture.
There's two components, I think, to the scope of the joint venture. One is automotive software, and that will cover the entire tech stack associated with automotive software. So that will be software-defined vehicle, the architecture and the operating system, the middleware, and also the applications that will sit on top of that. So from infotainment to ADAS to all of the software-defined functional capability that will increasingly define the mobility experience within the automotive industry. The second component of the scope is enterprise IT systems. And traditionally, that has been digital systems that have underpinned the way in which a BMW would operate. So PLM systems, ERP systems, manufacturing execution systems, and all manner of digital systems. But I think one of the things that BMW and the entire industry is doing these days is looking at leveraging their digital footprint to inform the way in which the product operates.
Well, the market share cap on UPI platforms like PhonePe and Google Pay is likely to be implemented by the 31st of December. The NPCI has drawn up a 30% market share cap on UPI transactions by volume. Rishabh, in fact, is joining us and will take us through the details of this. Hi, Rishabh. Take us through why we are seeing this being pushed to the 31st now.
What we're learning is that the UPI market share cap that is set for review in December is unlikely to be implemented now. That comes off of various factors like there are a lot of challenges involved like inconvenience to users. There will be disruptions to a growing payments ecosystem if a market cap like a 30% market cap is introduced, as well as a current lack of monetization model available for smaller players. So that is what we're seeing. The current leaders in the market, Google Pay and PhonePe, both have market share of over 30%. That is the market cap, and PhonePe is at about 48% market share. Google Pay is at about 37%. So both of them will not be able to reduce their market share come December. And that is why the NPCI will most likely also not implement the market share cap that is there in place. We also wanted to speak to NPCI. They declined to comment on the story. And this 30% market share cap has been proposed for a while. It was first drawn up in November 2020 in the throes of the pandemic, but it was then later extended to December 2022 and then extended later to December 2024, which is in a couple of months from now, but it is unlikely to see implementation.
All right, Rishabh, thank you very much for that. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced a slew of development projects and laid the foundation stone of various development works worth more than 76,000 crore rupees in Maharashtra. And NDTV Sujata Dwivedi joins in with the details. Tell us more, Sujata. Hi.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi today laid the foundation of several big projects in Maharashtra worth rupees 7,645 crores. Now, these projects, they include the Babasaheb Ambedkar International Airport in Nagpur and also the redevelopment of the Shirdi Airport, which did take a lot of amount, including 645 crores. So for this, the Prime Minister today laid the foundation via video conferencing, and also at the same time, he laid the initiative for several projects for the welfare of several sectors in Maharashtra, be it that of aviation, infrastructure and growth and welfare of the people. At present, the Prime Minister, while speaking to the people via a video conferencing, he spoke about how the Mahayuti government and the central government is together trying to ensure that the people of Maharashtra do not suffer and get them the best of their amenities for a better state development. And also the Prime Minister spoke about how until 2025, he's aiming to ensure that Maharashtra gets all the advanced technologies, where this is the second visit in the last 10 days of the Prime Minister, where earlier it was on the 5th of October where he inaugurated the third metro line, that is the Aqua line, and also laid down several projects, including that of setting up of the solar panels, the Swipe solar projects for the farmers, better irrigation facilities, and also the Latki Bahini Yojana amount was dispersed into the accounts of women of Maharashtra.
Well, the Tamil Nadu cabinet has approved 14 new projects worth around 38,700 crore rupees. The state government has said that these projects would generate employment for over 46,000 people. Now, the investments are from key sectors, including non-leather footwear manufacturing, green hydrogen, green ammonia production, e-vehicles and mobile phone spare parts. All right, now the month-long protests by workers at the Samsung factory in Chennai have escalated as the police arrested and dispersed them from the protest site. The police also took down the pandal where the workers were protesting without prior intimation. The Tamil Nadu finance minister has said that the state government was not trying to curb the protest, but was merely taking action against ones that were held without permission. And on to the latest From politics, well, after the historic win in Haryana, Chief Minister Nayab Singh Saini met the Prime Minister ahead of his likely swearing in. The Saffron Party had indicated during the elections that Saini will be its choice for the top post if the party wins in the state. Nayab Singh Saini had replaced Manohar Lal Khattar as the Chief Minister in March. And in Jammu and Kashmir, the National Conference Vice President Omar Abdullah, who is set to be the next Chief Minister of the state, has demanded the restoration of Jammu and Kashmir's statehood. He said that the government will pass a resolution demanding this in its first cabinet meeting. The National Conference has also, of course, managed to secure a majority in the state with 49 seats. Well, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that Israel has killed the successor to the head of the Hezbollah. This comes as Hezbollah's acting leader, Sheikh Naim Qassem, has promised more fighting on southern Lebanon. Israel's airstrikes over the past few weeks have targeted several parts of Lebanon. And here's NDTV's Mohammed Ghazali with a ground report.
Now, what has been happening since yesterday? We saw the deputy chief, or say the next in command, Naim Qassem of the Hezbollah, addressing the Lebanese TV channel yesterday, saying that our capacity is still intact. We have still the fighters there on the southern suburbs of Lebanon who are engaged in a ground combat with the Israeli forces. And then there were fires exchange. There has been a fierce gun battle which has been going on near the southern suburb of Beirut. But if you see here through visuals, I'll try to show you, and my camera person Adam will show you here. This is the kind of damage which has been inflicted by these aerial strikes. This is a multi-story building, and you see those damage there through the aerial strikes.
Well, that's all we have time for on this edition of Profit 360. Thank you very much for joining in.